Okay, let's dive right in. We're tackling something huge today. India bringing back caste enumeration for the next census.
Yeah, it's a massive development, something that, apart from counting scheduled castes and tribes, hasn't really happened nationally since, well, before independence.
Exactly. So, for you listening, the learner persona we often talk about this deep dive is your shortcut to getting your head around this complex issue fast. Why now? Why the change?
Well, it's layered, there's a long history, and then there are very current pressures building up.
Let's unpack that history first.
Right.
Where did this whole idea of counting castes even start?
It was a fixture during British rule, actually. From 1881 right up to 1931, they did it regularly.
Yeah.
It was part of how they categorized everyone: caste, religion, job, the works.
Standard colonial practice, maybe?
Sort of, yeah. But then after independence, 1951, narrow government made a conscious decision to stop it, mostly.
Why stop?
The thinking was, to build national unity. They worried that continuing to count castes would just reinforce the very social divisions they wanted India to move past. The focus was meant to be on a common Indian identity, not caste.
A powerful idea.
Yeah.
But they did keep counting SCs and STs.
Yes, that continued. That was seen as necessary for affirmative action, for reservations already in place.
Okay, so the general caste count stopped.
Yeah.
But wasn't there a directive later? In the 60s?
Right. 1961, states were allowed to do their own surveys if they needed data for creating lists of other backward classes, OBCs, but still no national caste census.
And more recently, there was the SECC in 2011, the Socioeconomic and Caste Census.
Correct. That was the last big national attempt to gather caste data alongside socioeconomic info. The idea was good, get a detailed picture.
But the caste data from that, beyond SCs and STs, it never really saw the light of day, did it?
Yeah, it didn't. Officially, the government cited mistakes, inaccuracies, inconsistencies in the data collected. So the last published national caste data we have is still technically from 1931.
Wow, 1931. That's nearly a century ago. So what changed? Why the big revival now?
Well, political and social demands have been growing for years. A huge moment was the Mandel Commission report back in 1980.
The OBC reservations catalyst.
Exactly. It recommended reservations for OBCs, putting the need for accurate data right into the political spotlight. How do you implement quotas fairly without knowing the numbers? That's been the challenge ever since.
And the states have been pushing ahead regardless.
Increasingly, yes. Look at Bihar. Their 2023 survey was a big deal. Found OBCs and EBCs made up over 63% of the population there.
That's a huge number.
It is. And Telangana, Karnataka, they've done surveys too, often to guide their own welfare schemes and reservation policies. Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are apparently planning them as well.
So it feels like the pressure built up from the states too.
Definitely seems that way. There's a clear trend at the state level, a renewed interest in getting this specific data.
Okay, so that brings us to the core arguments for doing this nationally now. What's the main push? The need of the hour case.
The absolute central argument is about tackling social inequality. Proponents say you just can't design effective policies to uplift marginalized groups without knowing who they are, where they are, and what their socioeconomic situation actually is.
Data-driven policy, basically.
Precisely. It's about targeting interventions. How do you ensure equitable distribution of resources, craft genuinely inclusive development plans if you're flying blind on the actual composition of, say, the OBC population?
And it helps check if current policies are working.
That's another key point. Affirmative action, like reservations, how effective has it been? Who is benefiting? Who isn't? You need reliable data to monitor the impact and outcomes to see if adjustments are needed.
Right. You can't fix what you can't measure.
You got it. Plus, there's an argument that a census provides a richer, more comprehensive picture of Indian society itself. Its diversity, the social fabric, how different groups interact. Better understanding leads to better social policy.
Is there a constitutional angle to this as well?
Yes, proponents often point to Article 340 of the Constitution. It talks about investigating the conditions of socially and educationally backward classes. Many see a caste census as essential to fulfilling that mandate.
And there are some strong voices quoted supporting this.
Oh, yeah. People recall figures like Babu Jagdev Prasad Kushwaha, who spoke powerfully about needing precise figures to address the exploitation of backward castes. The argument is stark. Without data, social equality programs are hampered, and objective research on affirmative action is almost impossible.
What about the link between caste and economics?
That's crucial, too. The argument is that wealth, opportunity, they often follow caste lines in India. So if you want genuine, holistic prosperity, you need statistics that break down the socioeconomic situation by caste.
Interesting point about the BJP's past stance, too.
Yeah, it's noted that they previously criticized other parties for allegedly focusing campaigns on just some backward castes, which kind of implies a need for more granular data to understand the whole picture.
And now, high-profile endorsements from the current government.
Absolutely. Home Minister Amit Shah called it historic, saying it'll empower backward sections. Information Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw framed it as aligning with national values. Even opposition leaders like Rahul Gandhi have claimed their pressure for it worked.
So, a lot of momentum behind the yes camp. But what about the concerns, the arguments against doing this? What's the tool of appeasement or the danger perspective?
The biggest fear, the one you hear most often, is that counting by caste might actually reinforce the caste system, that it goes against the ideal of a casteless society India has aspired to.
So it could make things worse, not better.
That's the worry. That it prioritizes group categorization over individual rights and equal opportunity for everyone, regardless of background. And then there's the sheer complexity.
How so?
Well, India has thousands of castes and subcastes. Defining them, ensuring people are counted accurately and consistently across the country, it's a logistical nightmare waiting to happen. It could lead to disputes, confusion, maybe even deepened divisions.
The potential for it to backfire socially.
Exactly. Some argue that focusing on what unites people, the commonalities, would be better for national integration than emphasizing these lines of difference.
Are there specific groups particularly worried?
There's a perspective, sometimes attributed to upper caste groups, that they've benefited disproportionately from past policies, and a census might expose this, challenging the status quo. You also hear concerns from some hardcore Hindu perspectives.
What's their specific concern?
They sometimes see it as a threat to Hindu unity. The fear is it might highlight the internal hierarchy, the Brahminical foundation, perhaps, and could be seen as a way to undermine Hindu society.
A plot, almost.
That language is sometimes used, yes. The general worry, cutting across different critics, is simply that it strengthens caste consciousness, makes people more aware of caste, and widens societal rifts.
Though others would say caste exists anyway, whether you count it or not.
Right. That's the counter-argument. The census doesn't create caste. It just reflects a social reality that people perceive and live with. Counting doesn't equal legitimizing. But the fear of fragmentation is real for many.
And didn't the government itself argue against it not too long ago?
They did. As recently as 2021, their stated policy in Parliament was not to enumerate caste beyond SCs and STs. They even told the Supreme Court in an affidavit that a national caste census was impractical, administratively very difficult, cumbersome.
That really highlights the shift. Okay, so the decision's made. What happens next? What are the potential implications, the ripples we might see?
Well, one almost certain outcome is a louder demand to raise the 50% cap on reservations.
The Supreme Court limit.
Exactly. Especially for OBCs, who currently get 27%. If the data shows they're a much larger proportion of the population, the pressure to increase their quota will be immense.
That slogan comes to mind. Jiski jipni sankyabari, uski udni hitsadari.
Precisely. Representation proportionate to population share. That idea is likely to gain a lot more traction, especially in local politics. You could see political alliances shifting, more intense competition based on these numbers.
More scrutiny on institutions, too.
Very likely. Public institutions, maybe even private ones, could face more pressure to demonstrate diversity in their staffing that reflects the population data.
But the practical challenges remain, don't they? Like the SECC 2011 experience.
Absolutely. Conducting this smoothly is a huge operational challenge. Standardizing caste classifications, ensuring data quality and consistency across India, these were major stumbling blocks for the SECC 2011. Getting it right this time will be critical.
So it boils down to a fundamental question, really.
Yeah. Do the potential gains, better targeted policies, a clearer picture of inequality outweigh the risks of reinforcing caste identity and deepening social divides? That's the tightrope.
And the exact how is still unclear.
We still need details on how the data will be collected, how castes will be categorized, how the information will actually be used. But what's undeniable is that this decision is set to profoundly impact governance, politics, and India's whole approach to inequality for years to come.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've really dug into the history, the why now, the arguments for and against, and what might lie ahead with this return to caste enumeration. It's definitely not a simple issue.
Not at all. It's a decision layered with history, politics, social anxieties, and potentially transformative power. Understanding all these facets is key.
Absolutely. And for you listening in, we really hope this deep dive has cut through the noise, giving you a solid grasp of what's at stake here. So here's something to ponder as we wrap up. Considering everything we've discussed, the history, the potential benefits, the risks, what do you think is the single biggest opportunity this caste census presents? And conversely, what's the biggest danger? How might this data actually shape India's path forward? Definitely something to think about.